Hey everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode number 153 of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. I'm a life coach and recovering alcoholic, and what we do on this show is talk about the trials and tribulations of life, sobriety, recovery. But bear in mind, everybody is recovering from something. So I'm sure you'll find something great here, even if you are not recovering from alcohol or drug addiction, but maybe you're just recovering from life. There's plenty out there. So a couple of things I want to talk about really quickly. First of all, I have a fantastic episode for you. I'm so excited to share this person who is incredibly kind and amazing and a supporter of the recovery community and talented. She's awesome. I also had my own little revelation the other day as I was checking through some emails and doing some stuff, and I got like 3 new reviews back to back, which was so freaking exciting, you guys. I love that. And I hadn't really thought about it, but I hadn't gotten a lot of new reviews in a while. So I get this email and I have new reviews and I got super excited about it. And then of course, I was immediately triggered to think of service, right? Because I get super lazy about leaving reviews for other people and for my favorite things. So I wanted to rope you guys in on this with me. And this is going to be all of our assignment this week. Whenever you're listening to this podcast, find somebody, a business, a service, a podcast, your friend's business, and let's go leave some good reviews for the people we love that are providing services that we love. Like, I know I have to go through this for myself every once in a while where I'll realize like that I get caught up just thinking about my reviews, right? And I'll realize like, wow, I listen to podcasts all the time and I haven't written anybody any reviews recently, you know? And so I'll sit down and I'll do 2 or 3 because it is important to give back and be in that service mindset, doing something for other people. How can I make somebody else's day better? What can I do to make you smile, right? That's what I like to think about. So I thought I would get us all together on this and let's be service-minded and go out and write some reviews for the companies that we love, that provide services that we love, or those locally owned businesses that you're so grateful for, or your best friend who owns a business who's just coming up and you're so proud of them and you want to be supportive. Let's go write some reviews, people. This is fun. This is good stuff. You can do it on LinkedIn. You can write people reviews on Facebook for sure, like all those places. Obviously, we all know where to write reviews, like for restaurants, stores, like that stuff I think is pretty easy. But let's just do this together. And I would love to hear in our Facebook group. I know we have so much good conversation in there, the Addiction Unlimited Facebook group. Make sure you jump in there and share like what you wrote reviews for, because I think this can be a really fun thing to keep going. And that's enough about that. But I just want you to think about being service-minded, okay? And now I want to get to today's episode. It's so good, you guys. She's a singer, songwriter, super talented, and she is an advocate for the recovery community. She just wrote an entire album, Songs to Recover By. Like the whole thing is about recovery and that journey and what it looks like. Her name is Shantell Ogden, and here is Shantell's episode. Hi, Shantell. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this episode with me. I'm so excited to introduce the listeners to you and your music. So let's start out. Just take a minute and tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you do.
Well, thanks for having me on today. I'm so excited to be talking with you live. I'm a fan of your podcast and have been listening to a lot of your fantastic episodes. Congratulations on your recent sobriety date in January. That's awesome. Your recent birthday. I am a singer-songwriter based in Nashville. And the connection that I have to your podcast today is that I just released last week, so February 19th, a new album of music that is based on stories and themes of addiction recovery. And it's called One Step Closer.
Nice.
Songs to Recover By.
And what is what inspired you? Did you kind of create a collection of songs like over the years, like you would write one here and there, or were you inspired to do an album about addiction recovery and you wrote all these songs specific for that? How did it all unfold?
That is such a great question, Angela. The general answer is it's both. So when I moved to Nashville, I've been in Nashville for 16 years now. It feels like forever in some ways and not at all. Any time has passed in others. But I moved to Nashville, and one of my first co-writes was with a friend of mine named Kurt. And I had this idea for a recovery song. And it was about someone who was coming to a higher power and coming out of addiction. And I wrote that song with him. It's called Trouble Road. And it's about the quote unquote church at the end of Trouble Road. The story behind the song was just, I was thinking a lot about these topics and it just was a song that I wrote. And it literally has sat in my catalog for 13 years. Well, along the way, one of the things that I believe in as an artist is being authentic and honest about what you see in the world. And so over the years, I've written songs about topics like the devil that's inside of all of us, the demons that we have to face. We all have them. And so there were a couple songs that I kind of written along the way that in retrospect were waiting for this project. But the day I decided to do the project was last year. I was having a conversation with my mom, and I said, I've been thinking a lot about addiction and how this time, this unique time in history, is really such a triggering set of circumstances, right? So we're isolated. We can't really go out and be in community with each other. There's a lot of financial stress. There's a lot of stress around health. Many people lost their jobs. And so there were a lot of stressors, and I just kept seeing, increases in addiction, increases in suicide, increases in overdose. And I said to my mom, I feel like I have to do something. And we were reflecting about my own family, and we've lost many members of my family to alcohol and drug overdose. And my mom said, Shantell, you really need to tell people when you're talking about this project that everyone that has been an addict is in the cemetery. Because in my family,
wow, that's powerful.
The tragedy. No one got out, right? They all ended up dying from this disease. And so that was really the genesis of this, that I needed to do something. The timing was now. This was a good moment to shed a light on something that touches every family, that touches every family, either personally or with loved ones. So I kind of looked at my catalog of songs, and I pulled some of these songs that had been waiting. And then I ended up writing some songs specifically for this project, like the title track, One Step Closer, which is actually written with two friends of mine in Nashville who are recovering addicts themselves. There's a lot of truth in it.
This is so incredible to me because I am a music lover for sure. And I always say, like, music to me is a spiritual experience. Like I am in it. I'm one of those people that listens to every lyric, every word. And, probably the introvert in me, of course, I try to make everything super deep, but and I have said many times too, I attribute music to almost saving my life at different stages when things were just really ugly, where I had music to connect to. And I remember a period of time when I was young, just a kid, and I would come home every day and I would put my album on and I would lay on the floor with my ear pressed against the speaker and I would just lose myself in that music. And it was like my meditation before I knew what meditation was, and music is just such a powerful source of healing and a way to learn about yourself and understand yourself. And it's incredible. So for you, what was so connected for you in this particular topic?
So I think just going back to the experiences that I've had within my family and, going to those funerals and thinking to myself, this is in our particular, in both sides of my family, both my mom and my dad's side of the family, there were different issues, right? And we had some functioning alcoholics on one side of the equation. We had more like the hard drugs on the other side of the equation. I saw the impact of that and I saw the pain that it caused the family in general, but also how it destroyed their lives. And that was really powerful to me. And this is something that I was listening to one of your recent podcasts about the difference between sobriety and recovery and how that journey is for people. And I totally agree with you that everyone's recovering from something. I think we all have traumas that we have to heal from. And for me, like becoming a songwriter, I think something that I can really identify with is to be, I think, a powerful songwriter. You need to be able to shed your own skin and really know how you feel about things and be honest. And being honest takes a certain level of self-awareness. It takes a certain level of maturity. It takes a certain level of courage. And for me, I sit down sometimes with artists and they say, "Oh, I want to write a party song," and I'm like, "That's not real to me, right?" Because what I saw more of was the impact of that lifestyle and the downside of that lifestyle. What makes me different than other writers is what I see in the world and what I've seen in the world and how I process that into music. And at the end of the day, songwriters are storytellers. And so we translate what we experience into music. One of the songs on the record is called Who Comes First? And I was dating someone for a very short time who was an alcoholic. And he had asked me, he said, "Oh, come with me to the bar. I want to introduce you to some of my friends." I said, "It's not really my scene, but I'll go have a Diet Coke or whatever." And we got to the bar and I realized he didn't have any friends there. He didn't know anyone there. We were going to see the bottle, right? Like that was his friend and that's what he needed. In looking at that relationship, the relationship takes on the qualities of the individuals, right? And I've often said this, the relationship reflects the least healthy person the most. So when he would say, "I'm going to meet you at this place," and then he'd get drinking and blow me off, the relationship was dysfunctional because of the things that he was struggling with. Just like any of us have, baggage. I was telling my friend Bill about this and I said, I really had to get to this place. It's like, what am I getting out of this relationship, right? He's not there for me. I can't count on him. He's got all these problems and he doesn't want to stop drinking. I just said, I really need to be in a relationship where someone can make a priority and can put me first, right? Like, obviously there's different priorities, right? There's, God, there's different kinds of first, right? But I don't think a bottle should ever come before a person or a substance should ever come before a person that you love or that you're with or getting to know or close to, right? That was another experience that I translated into this song where the woman, as you listen to the song, the woman's basically saying, it feels like you're cheating, but it's not another woman. And it feels like this and it feels like that. And at the end of the song, she says, I can't stay and watch you go from bad to worse because I know who comes first. And she knows she comes first, right? And it's this declaration of like, look, sometimes the healthiest thing you can show somebody is a healthy boundary. And I think for him, that's what I did is I just said, look, I like you. You're a great person. You've got a lot of good qualities, but these aren't things that I'm going to live with. These aren't things that work for me. And I just walked away from that relationship because I was not going to get what I needed.
Yeah. So you just said like going to the bar, you're going to drink a Diet Coke. So obviously I'm assuming you're not a big partier.
No, again, I think this goes back to what I saw. There was so many problems in my family, both sides growing up. I did a little bit of experimenting in high school, and then it was kind of like, I didn't really like the way I felt. It wasn't, I had my own set of issues. I do have my own set of issues, but, there were some things that happened that I didn't know how to process back then, but I just wasn't the kind of person that was going to go to a substance.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, was there a moment for you, like that you made a conscious choice to take a different path where you said, you know what, I've seen this really not go well for a lot of people. And I don't want to be one of those people. So I'm kind of making a commitment. I'm having a different kind of life. Was it that conscious for you?
It was conscious, but it was gradual. And so I think what came for me was I went through some things when I was around 18 that I was not prepared to deal with emotionally. The reality was I realized that I had this hole inside and I didn't know how to fill it. I got to this place where I realized, you know what? Me in and of myself is not enough. Like I don't have enough fortitude or strength or whatever within myself to deal with this stuff that's happening. I literally was kind of like, I realized I could not do this on my own. And so there was a journey to faith for me. And when I realized, okay, I can build a relationship with a higher power where he's infinite and I'm very limited, but I can draw on that strength. And I feel like that was really empowering for me. And yet it was a big change because I had friends that probably weren't very good for me at the time. And I know you talk about people, places, and things, right? Like that, I had to make life changes to support who I wanted to become. And for me, I've often said, like, I'm not one of those people that gets it right away. I have to kind of like do it for a while. And then like I started praying and I felt really weird. I was like, oh, this is really weird, but I knew like that was one of the things that everybody told me, like, you need to start doing this. So I would start doing it. And then after a while, it really did feel like it was comforting. It really did feel like I was getting strength. The same thing with going to church and participating in a regular church community. At first I would go and I just felt so awkward, and then like after a while you realize, okay, there is a purpose for this, right? It's an anchor. And so I think I've tried to be intentional about my life. And I think that that is something that people who are in recovery, that is something that I've heard a lot of. Like you have to kind of come to this crossroads where you get intentional and you say, look, I don't want to hurt anymore like this. And my friend last night, we were playing at a place called Recovery Unplugged in Nashville.
I know it very well.
Playing some live songs, right? We were playing some songs from the live album. And he's in recovery. And he said, the good news is you can feel again. And the bad news is you can feel again, right? And so it's like you just start going through all that stuff and you realize that we're all layered people, and it just takes time and years and years and years of growing and learning and trying to do better and failing and growing and learning and trying to do better.
Yeah, this is such great conversation too, because one of the things I always try to do is kind of normalize the sober path, right? In that, is getting sober challenging? Yeah, of course it is. But so is everything else we do. Life is challenging. So I so appreciate that you talk about that in building your faith, right? And when you first started practicing those tools, it feels uncomfortable and it is weird, just like doing everything else for the first time is weird. It is. I love that you said that about going to church, because everybody gets freaked out. I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people, I hear this regularly. People get freaked out about going to 12-step meetings, right? Because it's uncomfortable. And I'm like, yes, it's uncomfortable. Just like when you go to the dentist's office or when you go to the gym. Like when I started my fitness journey and really going to the gym all the time, you want to talk about freaking awkward? Like I was so intimidated. Like everything is uncomfortable. And so I love that you put it in that realm too, because it's just one more way that we have to remember things when they're new are just uncomfortable, and it's not specific to getting sober or the recovery community. Like it's just the nature of life.
Yeah. Well, and I was listening to one of your episodes where you were talking about kind of when you were 19 and you broke up with your first love, your first very pure, amazing love. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, what you commented on, but I thought was really powerful, is you talked about how our emotional growth can be stunted by things, right? And maybe it's a substance, right? If you start using and you don't continue to mature and gain coping skills like you talked about, but that growth can be stunted in a lot of ways and by a lot of things. I mean, I don't know, I have very strong feelings about this. There are people that I feel like there's that moment when you realize age and maturity don't really align, right? and you're like, that person's like 70 years old and they can't even say I'm angry and this is why. Like they can't, like the basic emotional expression is just not there. And so you realize that stunting of growth and coping and putting on the pants every day and like going out and doing the thing, right? That's hard for everybody. And I feel like there are people that miss out on a lot of the beauty of life because they limit their ability to feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was certainly in that category, no question. I got sober at 33 and a half, and I was literally probably 18 years old emotionally. And I could not identify a feeling if you paid me $1 million. Like I couldn't have told you what I felt about anything because I had spent a decade and a half drowning my feelings. All of them, good or bad. Like it doesn't matter what kind of feeling it was. As soon as I felt anything, I was like, ooh, a drink will make that go away.
Right.
And I remember early on, like I remember my sponsor would ask me like, well, how do you feel about that? Or how are you feeling? And I was baffled. Like I couldn't even put a sentence together to respond to him. And he'd be like, well, are you feeling like this, this, and this? And I'd be like, yes, that's exactly what I'm feeling, but I could have never articulated it on my own. It really is challenging. And sometimes I'll be talking to clients in private sessions or whatever. And one of the feelings that gets so overlooked is boredom. And boredom is really dangerous, and boredom is like, it's hard to pinpoint because you think you're feeling all kinds of other things. You think maybe you're anxious, my anxiety is up, or I'm tired, or I'm irritated. And so often the underlying thing is you're just bored. and you have to go do something. But I got to tell you, identifying boredom is one of life's greatest challenges. You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think, going back to kind of helping us understand and identify our emotions, who hasn't been driving on the, down the road in their car and turn on the radio and gone, that's it. That song just told me how I feel. I
Yeah.
haven't been able to say it. I haven't really known how to express it. But that song is helping me understand my life.
Yeah, that's why I said in the beginning, like I've learned so much about myself through music, and listening to those lyrics and identifying with things. And yeah, it's huge. I have songs that fit kind of different parts of my journey too. Like I have a song that was really popular right at the end of my drinking when I was the biggest disaster. And I was so broken and sad and discouraged and just defeated. It was the hardest time of my life. And there was a song that was so popular, and it's kind of sad and it's really beautiful, but it was just exactly the thing that explained how I felt that, again, I could never have put into words myself. But these lyrics was like, yes, that's where I am. It's amazing. Music, it's a spiritual experience, I'm telling you.
Absolutely. Do you mind me asking what song it was?
So it's called Away from the Sun and Three Doors Down.
Okay.
So, well, I've been sober a long time, so it was a while ago.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love hearing people's connection to music, right? That's, at the end of the day, that's the most powerful part of it, is when you, as a performer and as a songwriter, when I look out into the audience and I see someone tearing up,
Yeah.
and I know like that song is hitting them, like that song is touching their heart. That's the whole reason that music exists, to
Yeah.
connect us and to help us to not feel so alone, and to help us feel, right? I want people to feel something when they hear a song of mine. Even if it's in I've had some songs in film and TV, and even if it's a scene in a movie and they hear a song that I've written, maybe it's a happy scene, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's a kind of a more fun, Hallmark Christmas movie. I still want them to feel something,
Yeah.
right? I want them to feel happy, and I want them to feel joy. And I think that music is a fantastic way to help any of us feel.
For sure. My friends think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, 95% of the songs in my phone are songs that I hear in TV or movies, and I'll hear something. I'll be like, oh my gosh, that was fantastic. And I'll get my phone and I'll do SoundHound to see what song it is, or in stores. Like I do it all the time. Like I'm always aware of the music that's playing everywhere that I am, I'll even stop in the middle of a workout. Like if there's a great song that comes on in my class, I'll stop and grab my phone and SoundHound. I'm in the class, everybody else is jumping around and I'm holding my phone up to get the song. But yeah, so I just have this crazy eclectic playlist, you know what I mean? That is so sort of random, but because I just love songs, and now I'm old, right? I can't even keep up with like the artist or who anybody is. Like I was so engulfed in music when I was a young person, before I was busy and I could actually follow artists and know who they were and what they were doing. I don't have that luxury anymore, but yeah, music is such an incredible thing. What is your favorite style of music to play or venue? Like, what do you love to do?
So the style of music that I write is, being in Nashville, of course, country music and Americana, which is, I call it more like the singer-songwriter genre. And that's what this album that I've just released is. It's 9 acoustic songs. So it's very organic. It fits the songs well, because I think well told stories don't need a lot. So that's the kind of music that I that I love writing. And I also really enjoy writing pop music for film and TV, but it's different. It's different kind of writing. So you don't tell stories in film and TV pop music. It's more about just the emotion, that you're trying to support because the story's on the screen. But I love all kinds of music, and Nashville actually has a pretty vibrant music scene that's not just country. Like there's a lot of Christian music here, and there's a fairly decent scene for really most genres of music in Nashville.
Acoustic is probably my favorite. So I'm really excited that you just said this album is acoustic too, because I love acoustic for sure. So what's your favorite kind of venue to play? Do you like smaller or do you like big?
Well, so I think, so it's different, right? So I've opened for some bands that had pretty large audiences, and that's a very different kind of feeling than a more intimate, small music hall, small theater, or even a house concert. There's just a different connection that you build. So I think for me, it's more about building that connection no matter what size the audience is. Last night at the place that we were performing here, there were about 20 people there, but they were all really dialed in to the stories and the songs. There's an exchange, and I think you talked about kind of a spiritual aspect. We played a song last night called Highway Calls, and it's the lyrics go, from the time you're a kid, there's a trigger inside. It's going to go off. It's just a matter of time. Till you and your vices take center stage, in or out of the spotlight, there's no escape. Dirty or clean, drunk or sober, it's off to the races over and over. Take a chip off rock bottom every time you fall. The low road is waiting when the highway calls. And there were people in there that as we played that song, you could tell they were going someplace inside of themselves. And I think a lot of us realize, and I've heard people say, like, trauma in your tissue, right? Like we kind of sometimes would come into the world with things that make us more susceptible to certain things.
Yeah.
And, as a kid, I certainly felt like I had things that made me different. And I think we all kind of have those things that are triggers that we're kind of born with, and what we decide to do when those triggers happen is really what ultimately we become.
Yeah. Probably the same with public speaking, in that, I've spoken in really large places with large audiences, right? Which is a different experience than smaller places. There is an exchange of energy for sure that happens between you and the audience. And sometimes it's hard depending on, well, it's probably the same for you most of the time with lighting. But I know for me, sometimes when I'm on stage speaking, like if the lights are crazy, you can't even see people's faces. And that's challenging for me because I can't get that connection with people and have that energy exchange, so I like when the lights aren't so bright so I can see people's faces.
Right.
It's more fun that way.
Absolutely.
So your album just came out. And tell everybody one more time what it's called.
It's called One Step Closer, Songs to Recover By. And I also want to make it possible for people to gift the music. So I have, if you go to my website, which is just my first and last name, shantellogden.com, then you'll see on the homepage, I have a link that says gift the album. And if you click on it, there's a way that you can send the album to anybody and just pay shipping and then get a free download for yourself. I want to just enable that process as much as I can, because it truly, I do believe that music can heal and can help and can give us insight into who we are. And that is what I want to share with this record.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. And thank you for being such an incredible supporter and advocate for the recovery community. We need all the support we can get. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And just wanted to tell everybody out there just that you matter and you're loved, and life is hard, and we've talked about some of those things today, but just know that you're worth it and you matter, and there's a place for you in this world, and there's something that you've been brought here to do. So find out what it is.
Amen to that. And for everybody out there, I hope you're having a fantastic day. If you enjoyed this episode, if you want to share Shantell's information, please take a minute and share this episode with a friend. I'm sure they can get value just like you did, and they might want to grab that free download offer also. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.